Greetings. Hey, thanks for being here on the Do Business Better podcast. It's me, Damian Mason, coming at you with my friend Joe Santa and his business, Trophy Center Plus. Joe joined us back in episode 34 or 35, and we called it There Are No Participation Trophies in Business, because he is in the trophy, award, and printed apparel business. He came into this about 10 years ago after being a public employee. So he worked in the school system as an athletic director. And if you want to go back and listen to that episode, it's a great episode because we talk about the lessons that you learn when you start your own enterprise and things that you thought were going to be easier than they probably turned out to be. So we are at his place of business. I thought this would be fun. It's after hours. We just popped a beer, so go ahead and you can do the same unless you're driving down the road. If you're sitting there, a reminder that the Do Business Better podcast is in audio format, as it has been now for 100 episodes. It's also on video format. Please go to the Damian Mason YouTube channel. That's D Mason Comedy, or just go on YouTube and type in Damian Mason. Find the playlist, Do Business Better, and hit subscribe. I would love to have you subscribe. It will help my viewership. Okay, Joe Santa. Here we are. This episode is titled Things They Don't Tell You When You Start a Business. Everybody that's listening, watching, has been there. They say, okay, I'm going to start a business. And I've got these great ideas. And I already talked to my lawyer about this. And I talked to my accountant about that. And they think they've got most of the bases covered. I know I was there, you were there, etc. And then about 100 things come up and you are a year or two into it and you're like, how the hell did I not see this coming? So, things they don't tell you when you start a business. There it was 10 years ago. You thought, this has got to be easy. I know people that buy trophies. I deal with them all over the state of Indiana. I'm just going to quit my job and start this racket, and I'm going to pick up all their business. Take me from there.
Well, we know that doesn't happen. I think we evolved a little bit from that point because we got into the printed apparel business, we got into the sign business, we got into the graphic design business because they were natural fits with our customers, and that has helped us tremendously. You know, the last 5 years we've grown substantially. Probably things were going as well as they could possibly be until this past few months, but
coronavirus put a hurt on all of us, but you kept it going, and
right.
Probably because of your differentiation that you did 3, 2, and 5 years ago,
right.
You've got revenue that you wouldn't have had if the coronavirus had happened to you in your first year and a half of business.
Yeah, we wouldn't be here because we lost. We work with about 33 or 34 schools, and so we lost all that business. We lost about 90% of that business March, April, May, early June. We did pick up some of the schools were doing some year-end awards that we were able to, from the award standpoint. But I think what's really the lingering effect of it is we've also continued to lose about 90% of our summer awards, which are the little leagues, travel leagues, softball leagues. They're just not happening. So, and if we had not evolved into promotional products, screen printing, embroidery, signs, design, it'd be me working just like I did year one, twiddling my thumbs.
Yeah, and working a lot to not have any actual revenue. Okay,
right.
So things they don't tell you when you
right.
start a business. Let's go with the first one that you already got. Well,
I think the thing that you think back, and I know how you feel about this, is, you know, the number one thing they tell you when you start a business is, you know, you got to get that business plan. And I understand the need for the business plan because you got to go to the bank with something. And if you don't go to the bank with something, you're not going to get what you want. And so once you go from that point, you know, I probably have looked at my business plan 5 times in 10 years. And I was so totally off base when I did that, thinking all this money I was going to make. But that's the one thing that you are never told when you start a business is to make sure you pay yourself first. Mm-hmm. And I probably took, I mean, even the bankers that I worked with basically told me, how long can you go without paying yourself? Yeah. And that's a frightening thing. I was fortunate.
Yeah, because you had always had a job where it was every 2 weeks you got paid regardless.
Right, and I had built up some things. My wife is still in the education business, so that was there. But when you hear that, the reality of it is it's wrong, because there are ways to pay yourself, and I learned the hard way. But after about year 4, I started reading and researching, and it really came up to this entity called Profit First. And it's just basically, you've got expenses. Take out the money for yourself first, then pay the expenses. And once that happened, it's like a boom.
Things they don't tell you when you start a business. You started off with business plan, and you said, I know how, Damian, you feel about this, because I say in my book, Do Business Better, which, dear viewer and listener, if you haven't checked it out by now, you should. Do Business Better. It's a book that came out 1 year ago. I say that the problem is they become antiquated quickly. The striving, want to be entrepreneur spend so much toil on creating a business plan that then they are afraid to vary from it. And as you know, within a year, you better be pivoting, and pivot's a big trendy business word. They talk about big businesses are going to pivot. Yeah, well, you try and be a one-man band with like your wife working the books and your kid back in the storeroom. You're pivoting every day. And if you don't have the ability to do that because you fell in love with your business plan, I think you're screwing yourself up. You went a route of differentiation. You went away from being a retail store. You thought you were a retail unit, and then it dawned on you that you weren't a retailer. You're a seller of stuff, but you don't need a retail store necessarily. So business plan, what do you tell me when you say things that they don't tell you when you start a business? You put a lot of stock in your business plan, and now you realize you've looked at it 5 times in 10 years.
And I knew I had to have one because every time I went to a bank, they said, you got to have a business plan to start your business, which I did. But what you don't, you include that business plan, which you kind of overblow what you're going to do. You don't, unless you're really lucky. But the one thing you never include in there is, make sure you pay yourself first. And so many businesses, these people are you don't make a dime, and your employees are making more than you. Yeah. And that's wrong.
And we know people that's the situation.
I tell people now that call me, and one of our good friend Tim Kaufman. Tim is working hard at starting his own business, and the one thing I told him from start is you got to make sure that you put money aside for yourself out of every check. It's the piggy bank approach. That's all it is. But you make sure that you put money aside for yourself because you have to, because you're not going to survive.
Real quickly, by the way, and my viewers and listeners and readers know this. What have I always said? If you're new to this and you forget, I'm going to remind you of something. You need a business plan to borrow money. You do not need a formal business plan to make money. Okay, pay yourself first. What else? Okay, number 3. What else did they not tell you when you started a business? I can come up with a few myself, but I want to hear yours.
The one thing that and I spent probably, I say this, 2 years.
By the way, that was a burp because we're drinking beer because it's after hours. If you look at that clock up there, it says 5:30, and Joe and I have been humping. We've been humping since.
It's not after hours.
Yeah, don't tell anybody. There are no after hours when you run your own business. That's why we're still here working. And the heck of it is, don't tell anybody, but I was really on it today. This was one of those days where it was cranking by 7 a.m. and I said I got a lot to do. The third thing that they don't tell you when you start your own business.
One of the things that when you're getting everything set up, you're obviously working on that business plan, is you do a lot of research and you read, and you spend very little time on why businesses fail. Mm-hmm. And I firmly believe that, and again, I refer people that now would call me or talk to me, I tell them to seek out people that they know that didn't have much luck with their business, or actually failed. What happened to them? I spent time locally going to people that had run successful businesses, and they gave me all the things that worked for them, but they don't tell you, the people that failed, you need to talk with them too.
You're getting a little excited, but anyway, I'll make sure they're hearing. Okay, so here's the thing. Joe is really excited about his business. Okay, this is something that I say is, my wife says, boy, people want to criticize you because, I'm a little bit of a high flyer. I write books. I have a personality. I've been on stage for 26 years. There are those that decide that they don't like you, me. And Mrs. Mason has said, the thing is, there's one thing that they can never, ever say. They can't say that you are a liar. She's like, you're so honest. That's why some people hate you. Like you tell them blatantly. I wrote a book called Brutal Truth. By the way, just brought it over here. He'll show it to you later on. If someone said, have you ever failed? I'm like, ever? This morning. Yeah, I can tell you a lot of things that I've done wrong. I've overinvested in ventures that that didn't have a ghost chance in hell of coming about. I have put too much stress and worry into things that do not matter. I have spent hours, weeks, and months on ventures that I never should have pursued to begin with. I have diluted myself through attention deficit and always looking for the shiny object. So I can go through that whole thing. You just said, where have you failed? It was never that I lost my sight of money. It was never that I didn't understand investing and revenue. It was never that I didn't understand salesmanship. Those are my strengths. It's been more spin-outs. That's where I would say my mistakes are.
And, when I went in and talked with all those people that had run successful businesses, I don't think I ever asked them what didn't work. What did you spend? And, and so you spend your time and you need to know why people fail as well as why people succeed. And they don't tell you that when you're reading the books.
No, because remember, books are always about here's what you do. I think it's important to dissect and deconstruct of what went wrong here. I don't have kids, so there's always that thing of that wonderful business, and then it just starts to teeter, falter, slide, and you're like, what the hell happened? Oh, mom and dad decided they're going to prop up the kids and put them in there, and the kids don't have it. They don't have it.
You have the classic book of 7 Habits of Successful People. What about the 7 Habits of Failures, flops? I want to know that too.
Yeah, and I can come up with 7 that I think that I see. That would be one of them. Putting your kids into a situation that they are not made for, nor are prepared for, nor even care about, and expect them to do to carry on what you built. That's one cornerstone of them right there. I'm starting to write down things that they didn't tell me that I learned. Give me some other ones that you learned.
One of the things and it's a big fear of anyone that's starting their own business, is they're afraid to hire people because they don't want those people to take their money. I go back to pay yourself first. I understand that, but you don't read or you don't see the things that when you bring a good person in, and I'm finding this out now the last 3 years, you bring good people in, yes, they're going to cost you money, but they're going to make you money. And they're going to give you time to make money for yourself. And you don't realize that. You spend so much time in the early years of your business afraid to pay somebody, afraid to have somebody do the work for you, that you end up just going crazy, chasing your tail.
Yeah, so your thinking there is you decided you would do everything. You would be the person that did the design. You would be the person that was making up the trophies. You'd be the person that was on the phone. You'd be the receptionist. You'd be the bill collector. You'd be the bill sender. You'd be the trophy deliverer. You'd be the outreach. And the point is, early on, you do wear every hat. Because you ain't got any money. You ain't have a business.
But you're not going to grow.
Right. So when
I was a high school AD, I was a master delegator. The jobs that I hated doing, I gave to my assistant.
Right.
And I should have carried that right on to here.
Yeah.
But you don't learn what you hate to do in your own business until you.
There's also the part of it that you were using taxpayer monies when you hired other people, and you were using your money or a borrowed money when you started your own thing. So that's a good lesson. So what's the right thing? When should you hire people?
That's a great question. I think when you realize that you are not making sales, standing in there doing the work, it's the classic work on your business.
Not
work,
in your
not
business.
Work. Don't work in your business. Work on your business, and you can't do both. And I think it's almost as soon as you get the ball rolling, get somebody in there to help you.
Yeah, and I'm the other way because I've been generally a sole proprietor with some contracted help and whatnot, and a couple of employees through the years. But we don't have the same situation as some businesses, so it's never a fear of spending the money as long as I could justify the return. But I agree with that. What about lesson 4 you learned that they didn't teach you when you started out?
I only wrote down 4 right now, so
right,
hopefully you've got some you've written down.
I've got some. I've got plenty.
Well, here's the other thing that I've learned as I evolved into, well, even from the engraving end, but in the screen printing, embroidery, and with company logos, company designs, you cannot imagine how many people out there don't protect or get ownership of the things they spend money on. So people will want to, they'll send me a JPEG to screen print a shirt, and you need what we call a vector file. They don't have it, but they have paid money 15 years ago but they don't have it, and they can't find it. And so they got to spend money again. The people that own their own business are investing money into their brand. Well, they need to have their brand with them at all times. And you cannot, there is a major milk producer in this town that I had to spend 3 weeks going through various marketing people to get them to send me something that I could work with. And that is just ridiculous.
You mean like a logo or a design or
logo
something?
or design.
And that company has paid it for it and owned it and used it for years and years, and they didn't even know where to fetch it.
They were sending us inadequate material, but yet they have spent money through the years. Now, the people, the better people that are the graphic designers, they're going to give you that stuff.
Yep.
And you're going to have that, and they're going to tell you why you need it. And so that's kind of what I've evolved in, is when we do work for people, we make sure those people understand why they need to hang on to that and why they have it. They own it.
Years ago, when I remember, I'm not a techie. I never claimed to be a techie. I'm technologically advanced enough to do things like record this podcast here in your shop without even a great camera. But still, I think I kind of like it. I like the look. And his shop, by the way, it is nothing fancy because this is not retail.
Workplace.
This is not a Tiffany jewelry store. This is a workplace with some things on display that you can come in and work from. Okay, so here's the thought on that. I believe it was, I don't know, say 13 years ago. I realized that someone else actually had done the work of getting DamianMason.com. And so clearly I could defend it that I had paid for it, but I wasn't the one that was in control of it per se. And so what you're talking about, I saw that up close and personal. Then I went the other direction at one point. I had something, Joe, that I bought a trademark for because I thought it was that important. And it ended up that I paid a couple $1,000s in attorney fees and then a couple $1,000s in filing fees, et cetera, et cetera. And you end up then, it's like, was this really such a big deal that it needed to pay for the trademark? So there's both ends on that. But I know what you're saying is you want to control your website, your domains, your logos, your designs.
And hire people that know what they're doing. And I mean, that's just classic business. But for example, my website, it's in the process of getting redesigned by a friend of ours. And my old website, all of a sudden, I opened it one day and it was a page of Arabic. And it had been hijacked and I could not get it back. I own the domain, so I was fine there, but then Angie took care of making sure that we got a new website up and running. But yeah, there it was. I had no clue.
All right, so that's the 4 things you wrote down about things they don't tell you when you start a business. That's it? I bet you there's a lot more.
Well, there are. Those are the ones that just seem to come back and bug me, and I think probably the most important thing is people pay yourself.
All right. You keep going to the money, so I'm going to go to one about money, and it's about paying that I wrote down. It was one of the first things I wrote down. Okay, dear listener, you're saying to yourself, well, this is an interesting discussion. These guys are having a beer. By the way, have a little sip out of your Dos Equis.
I did.
They're saying, okay, I'm listening to these guys, and I like what they're saying. I'll give you one about money. If you are in a client service business, and let's face it, we all are. We all work for other people's money. When I got going, I was a political comedian. Everybody listening to this probably remembers that that's my story, and I talk about it in my book. But I turned it into a business. It wasn't just that I was sleeping on somebody's couch and hanging out in L.A. smoking weed, hoping to someday get picked up on a sitcom. No, I made it into a business, and that's how I built, the next thing. But I knew I served clients. I knew I served customers. I knew that I needed other people's money. I knew that it was always the show, and I knew that I was selling a show, and I knew that I was a product. That's the other big one, is I realized what the product was. That's one of the things that I learned it really well that I didn't know beforehand. View yourself as a product, view what the product is, and do not take it personally. If I told you this T-shirt sucks, you say, all right, to get your business, what does that T-shirt need to look like, feel like, and touch and feel and talk like and taste like, or whatever? I learned that I was a product, and I just always realized there's a separation between the product and me. But the other one about the money, I served clients then, and I kept wanting to raise my rate. And then I had this guy. This is a very telling lesson. This old peckerhead. He called and bugged me. It was before the internet. He called and bugged me every day. It was in Indianapolis when I was still an Indianapolis-based, and I was traveling all over the country. I was starting to get movies and stuff like this. He just was banging on my door every day that he needed me for this event. some damn thing that was his little passion retirement project. I don't know, so, some Rotary event or whatever such thing. And they had like $0, whatever, just a next to nothing. And he just bugged me, kept telling me. And I said, if I give you this deal, I'm a $5,000 comedy act, for God's sakes. If I do this thing for you for this little bit of money you have, it could ruin my business. He says, oh, I would never tell anybody. You can just trust me. I would never tell anybody because I understand how business works. I just made sure the camera's on. I understand how business works. I went and covered this date for this guy. The next day, an audience member at his event called me and said, hey, I was at that event you did yesterday. I would love to book you for this. And it was a larger event, like a corporate thing. And he said, now I heard from Roger that you'll do this for $1,500.
Yep.
And I wanted to go to the old man that had bugged me and beat him with a sledgehammer. I learned that these people talk. So do not take a deal from someone that you're not willing to take from everybody else, because you can always defend it. But this deal that you're giving to Roger, just because he's not your friend, he's calling you because he wants a deal. And then it becomes a situation where that client will go and brag to so-and-so else down the road because they don't care about you. They want to then get you know what? Look at the deal I got. And so as much as you seem like you're being a pecker, as much as you seem like you're not helping out old Roger, you got to protect yourself, because old Roger will throw you under the bus in a heartbeat. He'll go and tell his former buddy from the country club, you know what? I got this deal for this.
And that's true. And you can't be afraid to your work is more valuable. You have to make sure they know your work. When they go with you, they're more valuable than the guy down the road. And here's why. Boom, boom, boom. And don't be afraid to have a higher price because of what you're going to do for them. Now, you made me think of something else. My business has a little cutthroat in it, as most businesses do. But you're going to lose jobs, and you're going to take it personally. And you've got to learn not to take it personally. You've got to let those competitive instincts jump in and say, okay, what happened there? And don't be afraid to win the next time. But and that's something that you learn over the years is you're going to get a phone call. I'll get a phone call from somebody and want a quote, and I'll give them a quote, and then they'll call me back a day later and say, hey, so-and-so beat your price by a nickel. You want to go under? And I'm like, no, they beat me. They have the best price. You got to go with them because I know what happened. And I'm not going to play that game.
Then it's the seesaw.
It's a cutthroat business, and you sell yourself, your service, your product.
Yeah, then it becomes a seesaw back and forth, and they're just going to seesaw you to death. No, that one is one that struck me then, and I've never forgotten it. You're going clear back to the late 90s on that one, because it was such that I remember, and I will continue to say, and I know that these listeners are probably saying, man, he's going to be harsh. I'm like, I'm not being harsh. It was the guy pulled I'm a nice old guy that's semi-retired, and I'm just trying to help this group. No, because the moment a guy that's your buddy that was in the audience called you, you had to brag that you beat me down on my money, and then I stood firm. And I used some profanity, and I hung up on that guy. The guy that called saying, I heard from Roger, you can do this. So you got to stand your ground on money, because remember, and you're saying, Damian, you're being kind of superficial. No, I'm not superficial. I just know that if you do not get paid, it is not a sale. And if you do not make money, your business will not exist. All right, what else you got? Things they didn't tell you.
You've exhausted my list.
Come on.
Sure you've got.
I'll give you another one. They didn't tell you. They told you about managing employees, probably. They told you about how to secure a contract. They told you about how to set up a lease. They told you about insurances. You know what most people do? They get overboard on, do I need to set up an LLC, a S Corp, C Corp, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, until you have a business or a customer or any revenue, what the hell difference does it make what you're set up as? It's not important at this juncture. Let's get out there and actually get some business going first.
Well, and I think I also know that there's certain areas that I'm clueless, and I'm not afraid to tell people I'm clueless. And the accounting end, the business end setup, I went to people that I trusted and just said, what do I need to do? And you hit the nail on the head. First of all, get started and get yourself started in the right way, and then we'll talk about how you grow into. And well, like I said, we're 9 or 10 years in now, and we're vastly different than we were in year one. And that's another thing. You cannot be afraid to grow. You can't think of I would have never told you 10 years ago that I'm going to be doing what I'm doing. I was going to be the best damn awards business in the whole Midwest.
Yeah, and you changed your marketing mix, which I was going to say, you started with that one, and that's not one of your 4, but I wrote it down. Differentiation of product mix and variation from business plan. That one is, to me, okay, and I cover it in my book, you shouldn't just be willy-nilly and every 4 hours decide, oh, this isn't working, this isn't working. No, you stick with it for a while, but then at some point, the marketplace will tell you where there's some opportunity. Hey, yeah, Joe, we're gonna be buying. Everybody on our little league team is getting a trophy. Now, can you also help us out on cleats? I don't know,
right.
Printed jerseys, whatever that thing is.
And you get tired of saying no, and you realize, wait a minute, there's something there.
Yeah. Can you also do this? Can you also do that? And the thing is, you run the risk of becoming so differentiated you have nothing, and it's now you're a jack of all trades, master of none, but you also then say there's these things I can do. So you differentiated, and when did you make that decision? 2 years in? After you got tired of saying no?
I'm going to say it was right before I moved to my second location, probably 3 to 4 years in. So, yeah.
What do you think now? You're going to still evolve as you need to. What thing is your next thing?
I think the next thing is we've kind of achieved a real niche, and it's an old term called pumpkin planning, and we've got to take a look at our customers, and I think we talked about this in our last. But, those small pumpkins that are not evolving and doing things for us, we've got to let them know. Listen, we appreciate your business, but because we've got to grow our other customors.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you
and they don't teach you that. They don't teach you. You think you've got to grab every person
every
that
nickel
walks
you
through
can
that
get,
door, and that's not helping you grow.
Yeah, so the person that calls me up and has a limited amount of money, and there's going to be 19 different hoops to jump through and a lot of stuff, and also it's hard because there was the time when you were just begging for that phone to ring, begging for that email to come in. And, of course, then the COVID-19 upsets everybody's apple cart. I've been in it for 25 years, and my apple cart got upset. You've been in it for 10 years. Your apple cart got upset. And, it's easy to say the person that has a guaranteed job that is just being paid to sit at home and play video games, they say, yeah, but, better be safe than sorry. And you're out here saying, I'm dying.
Yeah, and you talked about it just earlier. You mentioned it, you grow by you hear something, you think, wait a minute, I should have that on my plate. And if I hadn't have done that, we wouldn't be sitting here. I might be sitting here drinking beer somewhere, be with a bar in front of it. Well, if we can, I don't know if we can sit in front of it.
I don't think we can, but we can sit here and have and by the way, he keeps these in his refrigerator for me. Well, he did this one. Okay, we're going to wrap it up here. I want to point out something. That this is the face mask that you printed with your logo on it, because when face masks became the new thing, as I'm going to say, face masks are the new plastic straw ban. It became very popular.
Face masks have paid 3 months of rent for us, and if we hadn't have done them, there you go.
So you got to always be willing to pivot and make the adjustment. You might notice this has his logo, TCP, Trophy Center Plus, on here. I hate wearing face masks. He did give me this one, but it's not about a political thing. I feel like I'm being smothered. So. All right, you pivoted and you did that, because don't be so stuck in your business plan that you can't jump onto a situation that can make you money in the short term. Am I right?
You're correct. And what has happened is, by us kind of grasping at straws with some of the things we did early in the pandemic time frame, we found out, next year at that time, graduation stuff, we need to get on board, because that's a big business. And we can work with that.
Isn't it the old thing about how they never thought of, it's the old thing. They never thought of doing this, but once they did it, they said, hell, we can actually repeat that thing.
Yep.
I'm trying to think of good examples.
I don't know about that. That's just something that we never even thought about. And every kid that graduates, their family they're proud of that. They put that sign in their front yard, that banner on their door for their parties.
Yeah,
they all want to have this showcase.
So now you're in the you're in the banner and sign business for graduations. If you want to check out my man Joe Santa, it's Joe, and Santa like Santa Claus. But where should they find you?
TrophyCenterPlus.com. New website debuting. Proudly designed by IBA Design, Roanoke, Indiana.
One of our friends that's been on this podcast also, Angie, and I told you in my book that if you know my stuff and if you keep up with my stuff, you know Angie, because my website, my graphics, we all think very highly of her, and also we all work together. So remember, in small business, it's very important to have somebody like him and like her that you can get together with and drink a beer and talk about things, because a lot of people that you're friends with, they don't get it, right? They have normal jobs. They weren't working in there at until 9 p.m. and then back in at 4 in the morning because they have a shipment going out. They don't get what you go through. So make sure you have somebody like Joe you can drink a beer with. Don't necessarily need to drink a Dos Equis. I mean, but if he keeps a Coors on hand, what the heck? Trophy Center Plus, where else?
Thank you. We're in Huntington, Indiana, 46 Vine Street.
The main thing is if you've got a printing need, a graphics need, a award, a banner, a sign, what else?
T-shirts, screen printing, personalized items, gifts, promotional products.
Promotional products. Call him up. You know what? Why buy this crap from China when you can get it from a guy in the United States of America? Until next time, I'm Damian Mason. You were visiting us at the headquarters of Trophy Center Plus, talking about small business and things they do not teach you when you're starting at your small business. Till next time.